On nights when the weight of the world pressed down hardest, Daniel held on to just one thing, his little girl's smile. A single father abandoned by the woman he once loved, he worked his hands raw, counting every penny, praying it would stretch far enough to keep food on the table. He thought his story was already written in struggle, until a stormy night changed everything. A stranger, a broken car, and one act of kindness set in motion a chain of events he never expected, forcing him to face his deepest fears, his pride, and the true meaning of family. Do you believe in fate, in second chances, in life-changing moments that arrive when you least expect them? If yes, like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. I pulled the front door shut behind me, careful not to let the hinges creak, and wake my daughter. The night was heavy, the kind of heavy that settles into your chest when you spent all your strength, but the world still demands more. My boots scraped against the cracked sidewalk, and every step felt like it carried the weight of unpaid bills stuffed in the drawer by my bed. My phone buzzed. Another reminder about the overdue electricity. I shut the screen off. I couldn't take it tonight. When I finally reached our small apartment, the lights inside glowed faintly. She was still awake. "Daddy?" Her voice called the second I turned the key. I tried to sound cheerful, even though exhaustion made my words thick. "Hey, Peanut. Why aren't you asleep? It's way past bedtime." She came running barefoot across the carpet, her little nightgown trailing. "I wanted to wait for you." She hugged my legs so tight it almost made me stumble. I knelt and brushed her hair back from her face. "You've got school in the morning. You need rest more than I do." She pouted. "But you didn't eat dinner with me again." The guilt stabbed sharp. I tried to smile anyway. "I'm sorry. Work went late. Did you eat what I left in the fridge?" "Uh-huh." She nodded, then her eyes brightened. "I saved you the cookie Mrs. Harris gave me at school. I didn't eat it so you can have it." I almost broke right there. My little girl, holding out her only sweet, like it was treasure. "Thank you, baby," I whispered, pulling her close. "But you should have had it." "Nope. You work harder than anyone. You deserve it." She grinned, missing one front tooth. I kissed her forehead and swallowed hard. What kind of father am I if she thinks giving up cookies is her way of helping me? After tucking her into bed, I sat at the small kitchen table. The stack of envelopes glared at me like an army lined up for battle. Rent, utilities, medical bills, each one heavier than the last. I rubbed my face with my hands. The silence filled with my thoughts. I'm failing her. She deserves more than secondhand clothes and leftover spaghetti. She deserves ballet lessons, birthday parties, a house with a yard. But all she's got is me, a man barely keeping the lights on. My chest tightened. "I'll figure it out," I whispered to no one. "I have to." I pulled my wallet from my pocket. Only a few crumpled bills stared back at me. Tomorrow's groceries or bus fare. I'd have to choose. The clock struck midnight. I couldn't sit anymore. I needed air. Out on the street, the night smelled like rain and asphalt. I walked aimlessly, letting the cool air sting my face awake. Cars lined the curb, sleek, shiny machines that probably cost more than I'd make in 10 years. My reflection warped in their polished surfaces. I muttered under my breath, "What must it feel like to never count pennies at the store? To fill your gas tank without praying the car doesn't decline? To buy your kid everything she points at instead of saying maybe next time?" My throat burned. I shoved my hands in my pockets and kept walking. That's when I heard it. A loud clunk followed by the grinding wheeze of an engine refusing to start. It came from up ahead, near the intersection. I squinted through the drizzle and saw a dark car stalled under the flickering streetlight. Someone sat behind the wheel, fumbling with the ignition. I slowed, heart thudding. Most people would keep walking. It wasn't my problem. But something in me, the part that hated to see anyone stranded, made my feet move toward it. The sound of the sputtering engine echoed against the wet pavement. The driver opened the door. A woman stepped out, her umbrella snapping open against the rain. Even from a distance, I could tell by the cut of her coat and the shine of her heels that she wasn't from my world. Still, she looked around helplessly, the frustration clear in the tilt of her shoulders. I sighed under my breath. Guess it's my problem now. I took a step closer, water dripping down my jacket collar. I didn't know it yet, but that broken car was about to change everything. The rain picked up as I got closer, pelting against my jacket and sliding cold down my neck. The car sat there, hazard lights blinking like it was crying for help. The woman under the umbrella glanced at me, then back at the hood, like she wasn't sure if she should be relieved or wary. "You need help?" I called out, raising my voice over the rain. Her eyes landed on me, sharp but tired. "It just died on me. I don't know why." I nodded, pushing my hands deeper into my pockets. My father's voice whispered in the back of my head, "A car talks if you listen close enough. Pop the hood. Let me take a look." She hesitated, studying me. I probably looked like trouble. Soaked clothes, cheap boots, unshaven face. Finally, she pressed a lever and the hood lifted with a groan. Steam hissed out. I winced. "You been pushing it hard?" "I was late for a meeting," she admitted, stepping aside. Her perfume clung to the damp air, so out of place against the smell of wet asphalt. I leaned over the engine, my fingers moving on instinct. My hands shook in the cold. Knuckles cracked and raw, but the motions came back easy. Dad had drilled it into me when I was a teenager. If you know your way around an engine, you'll never starve. The woman shifted behind me, her heels clicking against the pavement. "You're not a mechanic, are you?" I chuckled softly, tightening a loose clamp. "Not anymore. Just a guy who doesn't like to see people stuck in the rain." She didn't reply, but I felt her eyes on me, like she couldn't figure out why a stranger would bother. The rain kept pouring, soaking through my shirt, plastering into my back. My fingers were numb, but I forced them steady. "Try the ignition now," I called. She slid back into the driver's seat. The engine coughed once, then roared back to life. Relief washed over me. "There we go." Her face lit up in surprise, then softened into something warmer. She stepped out again, holding the umbrella partly over me. "You fixed it." Just like that. I shrugged, wiping my hands on my jeans. Old habit. My dad taught me. Sometimes all it takes is tightening the right piece. Her lips curved, but her eyes were guarded. "Then thank you. Really." She reached into her purse and pulled out a crisp bill. My stomach twisted. I shook my head quickly. "No, keep it." She frowned. "You just stood out here in the rain for me. I can't let you walk away with nothing. I didn't do it for money." My voice came sharper than I meant. I softened it, looking her straight in the eye. If my daughter grows up thinking every act of kindness has a price tag, then I failed her. So no, thank you is enough. Her hand lingered in the air, the bill fluttering slightly in the rain. Then slowly, she tucked it back into her purse. Most people wouldn't say that. "Most people don't have a 7-year-old waiting at home," I muttered. For a moment, the only sound was the rain drumming on the umbrella. She studied me like she wanted to ask more, but thought better of it. Finally, she gave a small nod. "Well, then I owe you one." I forced a tired smile. "You don't owe me anything. Just get home safe." She slipped back into the driver's seat, started the car, and rolled the window down halfway. "What's your name?" "Daniel," I said after a pause. Her lips pressed together, like she was memorizing it. "Good night, Daniel." Then she drove off into the rain, taillights glowing red in the mist. I stood there, soaked and shivering, watching until her car disappeared. My chest tightened with a feeling I couldn't name. She wasn't like anyone I knew, too polished, too distant, but something about the way she looked at me stuck in my head. I shoved my hands into my pockets and started walking home again, whispering to myself, "That's the last time I'll see her." But deep down, I wasn't so sure. By the time I got home, the rain had soaked me straight to the bone. I peeled off my jacket, hung it on the chair, and dropped into the seat at our wobbly kitchen table. The stack of envelopes sat there, daring me to open them. I didn't. I just stared, fingers drumming against the wood. "Daddy?" Her little voice floated from the bedroom. Moments later, she patted out, clutching her blanket like a cape. "You're still awake?" I asked, forcing a smile. She nodded. "Couldn't sleep. My tummy's making noises." I rubbed my forehead. Didn't you eat dinner? I did, she said, sliding into the chair beside me. But at school, Sarah had those chocolate bars. The big ones. She shared with everyone. Why can't we buy those? My chest tightened. I looked at her tiny hands fiddling with the blanket edge. Because we're saving for something better. I said, trying to sound playful. Her brows scrunched. Better than chocolate? I chuckled, even though it burned in my throat. Way better. Someday we'll buy a whole box, and you'll eat so much you'll get sick of it. Her face lit up. Promise? Promise. I whispered, tapping her nose. She giggled, then yawned wide, showing the gap in her teeth. I pulled her close. Her warmth against me made the cold and weather night fade, if only for a moment. She doesn't see the bills. She doesn't hear the calls. All she knows is my word, and I can't let that break. After I tucked her back in, I returned to the table. The bills stare at me again. Rent, utilities, overdue notices. My fingers trace the paper edges. How many times can you rob Peter to pay Paul before Peter shows up the door? I leaned back, closed my eyes, and saw her face, the woman from Rain, the way she looked at me. Not just grateful, but curious, like she was trying to understand why a man like me would refuse money. Why was I still thinking about her? She was gone, back to her world of spotless cars and silk coats. People like her didn't remember men like me. Still, her eyes wouldn't leave me. Daddy? Her small voice cut through my thoughts again. She crept back out, rubbing her eyes. You're thinking too loud. I smiled faintly. Am I now? She climbed onto my lap, curling up like she used to when she was smaller. Yeah, what are you thinking about? I hesitated. About how sometimes we help people, even if it costs us, and we don't know if it matters. She yawned, resting her head on my chest. It always matters. Teacher said kindness is like planting seeds. You don't see it grow right away, but later you will. Her words sank deep, heavier than all the bills on the table, out of the mouths of children. Truth I'd forgotten. I kissed the top of her head. You're right, Peanut. She mumbled sleepily. So don't be sad. The seeds will grow. Minutes later, her breathing slowed, soft and steady against me. I sat there in the dim light, holding her, staring at the stack of envelopes. My pockets were empty, but my arms were full. And maybe that was enough to keep me going one more day. The next morning, I shoved the bills back into the drawer, splashed water on my face, and headed to work. The hallway echoed with my footsteps as I pushed the mop bucket forward. Then I froze. Up ahead, walking with quiet authority, was a woman I thought I'd never see again. I almost dropped the mop handle when I saw her. Same sharp eyes, same calm face I'd memorized on the streetlight. Only now framed by a suit that probably cost more than my rent. She walked through the corridor like the walls bent to her presence, heels striking the floor in steady rhythm. I froze, praying she wouldn't notice me. My shirt was damp with sweat. My shoes squeaked on the polished tile. I must have looked like a shadow in her world of glass and steel. 2 employees nearby whispered, "That's Ms. Carter. She's a CO. Flies in from overseas like twice a month." CO? My stomach twisted. Of course. Figures. I fixed her car in the rain and turned down her money, only to scrub her office floors the next day. I ducked my head, scrubbing harder at the tile, hoping she'd pass without a glance. Daniel. Her voice cut through the air. I froze. Slowly, I lifted my head. Her eyes were locked on me, steady, searching. I gripped the mop tighter. "Ma'am." A faint smile tugged at her lips. "I thought it was you." Heat crept up my neck. "I just doing my job here. Floors don't clean themselves." She tilted her head slightly. "You really didn't take the money, did you?" I shook my head. "Told you I wasn't looking for handouts." One of the office guys stared at me like I'd grown 2 heads. "Wait, you know Miss Carter?" "Not really," I muttered, glaring at the floor. She ignored them, stepping closer. "You helped me in the rain when you didn't have to. That stays with me." Her words should have felt good, But instead, my chest tightened. What if she thinks I refused her out of arrogance? Or worse, pity? I just did what anyone would have done, I said quietly. Not anyone, she replied. Her tone carried weight, not praise but truth. The janitor's cart squeaked as I pushed it forward, desperate to escape. Well, good to see you made it home safe. Daniel. Her voice stopped me again. I turned, reluctant. I meant what I said, she continued, her gaze steady. I don't forget people who show kindness. My throat worked, but no words came. Pride and shame wrestled inside me. Pride that I'd stood by my principles. Shame that she saw me like this, sleeves rolled, hands raw from bleach water. Finally, I forced a stiff smile. Then I guess I'll be seeing you around, Miss Carter. Her eyes softened, almost like she wanted to bridge the distance between us. But then her assistant appeared at her side, whispering about a meeting. She gave me one last look before turning away, her heels clicking down the hall, leaving me gripping the mop like a lifeline. What the hell just happened? I leaned against the cart, my chest heaving. The guys nearby kept whispering, You really turned down her money? Man, do you know who she is? I waved them off. I don't care who she is. I just did what I had to do. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. I did care. Not about her money, but about the way she'd looked at me, like I wasn't invisible. The rest of the shift dragged. Every squeak of my shoes echoed too loud. Every bucket splash reminded me I was mopping floors while she sat in an office 10 stories up making decisions that shaped entire companies. When I clocked out, my reflection in the glass doors stared back at me. Tired eyes, cheap uniform. I muttered under my breath, She'll forget about me tomorrow. But deep down, I wasn't sure I believed that. I hadn't even shaken off the bleach smell from last night when I saw her again. Same sharp suit, same steady stride. She walked right toward me this time, no hesitation, like she'd been waiting. Daniel, she said, stopping just a few feet away. I tightened my grip on the mop handle. Ms. Carter. Her eyes flicked the bucket, then back to me. We keep meeting like this. I shrugged. Floors don't care who walks them. They still need cleaning. She tilted her head. You turned down money. But what if I offered something else? A knot twisted in my stomach. Here it comes. I forced a laugh. If you're about to say charity, save it. I'm not. Not charity, she cut in firmly. Work. That word stopped me. She continued, I own this company, Daniel. We have a garage downstairs. Mechanics, drivers, maintenance staff. I want you there. I blinked. You want me to work for you? You already do, she said, gesturing at the mop. But you're wasting your hands here. I swallowed hard. Why me? Her gaze didn't waver. Because when everyone else passed me by, you didn't. That tells me something about you. Heat crawled up my neck. Look, I appreciate the thought, but you don't want a handout, she finished for me. I nodded. Exactly. She crossed her arms, watching me like she was studying every crack in my armor. So don't take it as a handout. Take it as a chance. The pay is better, hours more stable. Your daughter. Leave her out of this. I snapped before I could stop myself. Her eyes softened. I didn't mean to offend. I just know what it's like to grow up watching someone you love struggle. Her words hung between us. For the first time, I saw something in her expression that wasn't power or command. It was memory. Pain even. I rubbed a hand over my face. Pride doesn't put food on Emily's plate. Pride doesn't keep the lights on. But still, I muttered, I don't want to be anyone's pity case. She leaned in slightly. Then, don't be. Show me you can earn it. That's all I ask. My chest tightened. You'd really put me in that garage? Her lips curved, not quite a smile, not quite serious. Something tells me you'll surprise more than just me down there. I stared at the mop in my hands. The handle was cracked, the water gray. My reflection in the bucket looked as worn out as I felt. Emily asked last night if we could get pizza. I said quietly, not even realizing I'd spoken aloud. Her brow lifted. I told her maybe next week. My voice cracked. Truth is, I didn't know if I could even cover rent. She didn't say a word, just waited. Finally, I exhaled. All right, I'll take the job, but on one condition. What's that? I met her eyes. I work. I earn. I don't owe you anything beyond that. I won't be treated like some project. Something flickered in her gaze. Respect, maybe. Deal. For the first time since meeting her, I saw her smile fully. It wasn't the polished CEO smile she wore in the halls. It was real, warm, human. I'll have HR send you the details, she said, turning to leave. Then she paused. And Daniel, yeah, don't sell yourself short. Pride is admirable, but humility? That's strength. Her heels clicked away, leaving me standing there with a mop I suddenly didn't need anymore. Humility, strength, easy word for someone in her shoes. But maybe she's right. That night, when I tucked Emily into bed, she yawned and whispered, "Daddy, can we have pizza soon?" I brushed her hair back and smiled. "Yeah, baby, sooner than you think." She grinned, eyes drifting shut, and for the first time in months, I let myself believe it. The next morning, I traded my mop for a wrench. The air in the company garage was heavy with grease and humming engines, a smell that reminded me of my father's old shop. But unlike his place, this one was spotless, almost too polished, like even the stains here were richer than me. "New guy," one of the mechanics asked, looking me over. His coveralls were crisp, spotless. Mine were secondhand, sleeves rolled too short. "Yeah," I muttered, pulling at my collar. "Name's Daniel." He gave a quick nod, then went back to his engine. No malice, just indifference. Still, I felt it. The invisible line between me and them. Their shoes shined. Mine were scuffed. Their hands wore gloves. Mine bore cracks that soap never fixed. I don't belong here. But rent's paid this month, isn't it? Emily's stomach isn't empty tonight. When I came home that evening, Emily was at the kitchen table with a plate of spaghetti. Real spaghetti. Not noodles with ketchup, but the kind that actually smelled like something worth eating. "Daddy," she beamed, sauce on her cheeks. "We had this at school once. Can we have it every day?" I laughed, ruffling her hair. "Let's not get carried away. But yeah, we can have it more often now." Her little arms wrapped around my waist. "I like your new job." My throat tightened. She doesn't care about my shoes or my hands, just that I can feed her. "Me too, baby," I whispered, though inside I wondered if that was true. The days passed in oil and sweat. I kept my head down, fixed what needed fixing, and avoided attention. But somehow, she always found me. "Daniel," her voice carried to the garage one afternoon. I straightened too fast, banging my head on the hood of a car. "Ms. Carter." The guys froze, tools in hand. The CEO in the garage wasn't exactly a daily sight. She didn't look at them, only me. "How's the work?" I wiped my hands on a rag. "Work's work." Her eyes flicked to the scrape on my knuckles. "That cut looks bad." "It'll heal," I said quickly. A small smile tugged at her lips. "I see." Still refusing help even when it stares you in the face. The mechanics exchanged glances, whispering. My neck burned. Great. Now, they all think I've got some special arrangement. I forced myself to meet her gaze. "I'm here to fix cars, not take handouts." Her smile faded, but her eyes didn't harden. If anything, they softened. "Noted." She left without another word, heels clicking against the polished floor. I exhaled when the door shut. Why does she keep checking in? Doesn't she have board meetings, dinners, some other world to rule? Why here? Why me? At home, Emily drew a picture with crayons on cheap paper. It was us, me holding her hand, her hair in little loops, both of us smiling in front of a house. Not an apartment. A house. "See, Daddy? That's where we'll live someday," she explained proudly. I stared at it, my chest aching. "Looks perfect." She leaned closer. "And maybe you won't have to work all the time." I kissed her forehead, hiding the sting in my eyes. "I want that more than anything, baby. But dreams cost more than I've ever had." One evening, I was locking up the garage when her voice broke the quiet. Daniel. I turned. She was leaning against a sleek black car, the kind that probably cost more than I'd make in 10 years. You should go home, I said. It's late. So should you, she countered. I wiped my hands on a rag. Emily's waiting, her head tilted. Emily, your daughter. The way she said it made me pause. Gentle, almost personal, like she was holding the word carefully. Yes, I said slowly. She hesitated, then asked, How old is she? My guard went up. Why? Her eyes met mine, steady but vulnerable, because sometimes it helps, knowing someone else is trying to raise a child in a world that doesn't make it easy. Something in her tone made my chest tighten. For the first time, I wondered behind the CEO title, behind the wealth and walls. She carried wounds of her own. Her words about children lingered in the air, heavy and unexpected. I found myself frozen, rag still in my hand, unsure whether to answer or retreat. But something in her eyes, steady, unflinching, almost familiar, pulled me in. Emily's 8, I finally said, my voice rough, smart, stubborn, way too curious for her own good. A small smile curved on her lips. Sounds like someone I know. I frowned. Who? Me, she admitted softly. I blinked. You. She nodded, stepping away from the car. Her heels echoed in the empty garage as she moved closer. I wasn't supposed to make it here, Daniel. Not with where I started. I hesitated, torn between curiosity and the instinct to guard my pain. What do you mean? She leaned against a workbench, crossing her arms, not in power this time, but in memory. My parents died when I was 12. Car accident. One day they were there, the next gone. I had no brothers, no sisters. Just me, in a city that didn't care. The rag slipped from my hand. I'm sorry. Her eyes glistened, though her voice stayed steady. Sorry doesn't change it. What did was working, harder than anyone thought possible. I put myself through school, jobs no one else wanted, nights I cried alone, until crying stopped helping. That's how I built this company. Not because I wanted power, but because I never wanted to feel that helpless again. For a long moment, I said nothing. The sound of the clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have. Then, before I could stop myself, I whispered, I know that helplessness. She looked at me, almost waiting. I swallowed. My wife left when Emily was 5. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. Said she couldn't handle the weight. Left me with bills stacked higher than I could pay, and a little girl asking questions I couldn't answer. I've been scared every single day since. Scared I'm not enough. Scared I'll fail her. Her gaze softened. And yet you haven't failed her. I let out a bitter laugh. Some nights, dinner's nothing but toast. She wants new shoes, and I buy them secondhand. You should have seen her face when I told her we couldn't afford the same snacks her classmates bring. She doesn't need fancy snacks, she said firmly. She needs you. The certainty in her tone hit me harder than I expected. Could it be true? Could it be enough for me, just me? I've told myself it wasn't, that every shortcoming was proof. But what if love really did way more than money? I rubbed the back of my neck. Funny, isn't it? You got everything I don't. Money, respect, security. And yet, somehow we're standing here talking about the same scars. Scars don't care about wealth, she murmured. They just remind us where we've been broken. But broken doesn't mean finished. Her words lingered. I found myself nodding slowly. You're not what I expected. I admitted. She raised an eyebrow. What did you expect? A woman in heels who didn't know the difference between a wrench and a hammer. Someone too busy to even look my way. She laughed softly, an honest laugh, not the polished kind I'd heard in boardrooms. I can't fix a car, Daniel. But I know what it feels like to fix yourself every single day just to make it to the next. That laugh, that truth, it chipped away at the wall I'd built around myself. For the first time in years, I let silence stretch without filling it with excuses or jokes. My chest ached, but it wasn't the kind of ache that destroys. It was the kind that heals. Finally, I said, I don't talk about this. Not to anyone. But it feels different with you. She held my gaze, and in that look, I didn't see a CEO or a paycheck or someone from another world. I saw someone who knew loss, who knew the sting of being left, who had clawed her way back just to keep breathing. Maybe, she whispered, because you know I understand. For once, I didn't argue. Maybe fate wasn't punishing me when her car broke down that night. Maybe it was giving me someone who carried scars of her own, her words. Maybe because you know I understand, were still echoing in my chest when the real test of my life came crashing down. It started with Emily's cough. At first, I thought it was just a cold. Kids get sick. But that night, her skin burned hot. Her little breaths came too fast, and when she whispered, "Daddy, it hurts to breathe," my heart stopped. "Hold on, baby," I said, scooping her into my arms. Her body felt so light, too light, like she was slipping through my grip. "Daddy's here. We're going to the hospital right now." The rain hammered down as I drove, wipers useless against the storm. Every red light felt like a punishment. My chest was tight, lungs screaming for air I couldn't find. What if I'm too late? What if she slips away, and all I'm left with is an empty bed and her crayons on the table? When I stumbled into the ER, shouting for help, nurses rushed her onto a gurney. I tried to follow, but a hand stopped me. "Sir, you need to wait." "Wait." My voice cracked. "That's my daughter in there." The door swung shut, and I was left alone under harsh white lights, drenched and shaking. My fists curled until my nails dug into my palms. Not her. God, not her. Take the bills, take my pride, take me, but not her. Daniel. I spun around. She was there, Ms. Carter, heels clicking against the tile, face unreadable but eyes fixed on me. What are you doing here?" My voice broke. I heard. She said, simply like that explained everything. "How is she?" "I don't know." I whispered, voice raw. They won't let me in." Without hesitation, she went to the nurse's desk. Her tone was calm but sharp, the kind of voice that made doors open and walls fall. Within minutes, a doctor appeared. "Sir, your daughter's stable for now. Severe pneumonia. She'll need monitoring, oxygen, and medication." Relief hit me like a wave, but was followed by the sharp stab of reality. Bills, medication, hospital nights, money I don't have, money I'll never have. "Doctor," I croaked, how much is this going to cost?" He hesitated, glancing between me and her. I pressed, "Tell me." When he gave the number, my knees nearly buckled. Weeks of pay, months. Even if I skipped meals, even if I sold everything, it wouldn't be enough. I pressed my hands to my face. I can't. God, I can't lose her. She's all I have. Please, don't let them take her away from me, because I'm broke. A warm hand touched my shoulder. Her hand. "Daniel," she said softly. "Breathe." I looked up, tears I couldn't hide running down my face. I can't afford this. I can't even keep up with rent. What kind of father am I if I can't save my little girl? She knelt slightly, so her eyes met mine. "You're the kind of father who ran through a storm to get her here. The kind who works himself to the bone so she never goes hungry. The kind who would give his last breath for her. Don't you dare say you're not enough." My chest cracked open, and I broke. Sobs ripped through me. Years of fear and shame spilling out right there in the sterile hallway. I didn't care who saw. She didn't flinch. She just stayed there, steady, holding me up without saying another word. When the doctor came back with paperwork, she took it from his hands before I could react. "I'll cover it," she said quietly. "No," my voice shook. "I can't let you." "You can," she cut in gently. "And you will. Not as charity, not as pity. As someone who understands what it's like to face the unthinkable alone. Let me do this, Daniel." I stared at her, torn between pride and desperation. Then I thought of Emily. Tiny body hooked to wires, chest struggling for air, and pride lost. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice breaking. She gave the faintest smile. "Don't thank me. Just make sure she gets better." Hours later, I sat by Emily's bed, her small hand wrapped in mine. the hiss of oxygen steady in the room. She stirred, eyes fluttering open. "Daddy," she whispered. "I'm here, baby." Her lips curved weakly. "Don't cry. I'll be okay." Tears spilled again, but this time they carried relief. "Yeah, baby, you'll be okay." Behind me, I felt her presence, quiet, steady, watching over us. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel completely alone. Emily's tiny fingers curled around mine, her breathing steady now, no machines beeping an alarm. The storm that had nearly broken me was finally quiet. I kissed her forehead, whispering, "You scare me half to death, baby girl." Her eyes fluttered open, sleepy but clearer than before. "But I told you I'd be okay, Daddy." I laughed softly, though tears burned again. "Yeah, you did. Guess you're braver than me." She squeezed my hand weakly. "That's because you're strong for both of us." Her words struck deeper than she knew. For years, I thought strength meant carrying everything alone, refusing help, refusing to bend. But maybe real strength was letting someone walk beside you when the weight got too heavy. When we finally went home, I felt lighter. The bills didn't vanish, but the fear that used to choke me wasn't as sharp. Someone had stood with me when I was at my weakest, and the world hadn't collapsed because of it. At work, things changed. The same mechanics who barely noticed me at first now nodded as I passed. "Morning, Daniel." One of them said one day, "Heard you stayed up all night fixing that old transmission. Boss said it ran like new." I wiped my hands on my rag, a quiet pride blooming in my chest. Just did what I knew. Another mechanic clapped me on the back. "Not bad, old man." I almost smiled. Respect wasn't handed out in this garage. It was earned in grease, sweat, and hours no one saw. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged. At home, Emily's laughter filled the rooms again. She ate her spaghetti without wincing, colored pictures without pausing to catch her breath. "Daddy," she said one evening, holding up a new drawing. It was us, me, her, and someone else standing beside us. A woman in a dress, hair pulled back neatly. I frowned. "Who's that?" She giggled. "Ms. Carter. She helped us, didn't she?" I paused, my chest tight. "Yeah, baby, she did." Emily tilted her head. "She's nice. You smile different when you talk about her." I ruffled her hair. "Eat your dinner, little detective." She grinned, but her words lingered long after she fell asleep. Was I smiling different? It wasn't romance. Not yet. Maybe not ever in the way stories like to tell it. But every time she checked in on me at work, every time her eyes softened when she asked about Emily, something unspoken hung in the air. One afternoon, she stopped by the garage, her heels clicking on the concrete. The guys straightened when they saw her, but she walked past them all and came straight to me. "How's Emily?" she asked. "She's stronger every day," I said. "Thanks to you." She shook her head. "Thanks to you, Daniel. She has a father who refuses to give up." I studied her, searching for the guarded CO mask I'd first seen. But it wasn't there. Just a woman who'd fought her own battles and somehow found the strength to reach into mine. "Why me?" I asked quietly. Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "You could have helped anyone. Given money, walked away, never looked back. But you didn't. You stayed. Why?" She hesitated, then said, "Because I know what it's like to wish someone would stand by you when you have nothing left. And I don't want you or your daughter to feel that kind of loneliness." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The sounds of the garage, the clank of tools, the hum of machines, faded behind the weight of her words. Maybe family isn't always blood. Maybe it's the people who show up when the world falls apart. I exhaled slowly. Then I guess I should stop running from kindness. Her lips curved into a rare, gentle smile. That would be a good start. That night, sitting at the kitchen table with Emily drawing beside me, I realized something. This story was never about money or jobs or luck. It was about love, the kind that bends but doesn't break, that shows up in unexpected forms. And for the first time in years, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we weren't alone anymore. Emily's laughter carried through the small apartment, light as sunlight after a storm. She twirled in the middle of the living room, arms stretched out, hair flying in messy waves. "Daddy, look," she shouted. "I can spin faster than yesterday." I grinned, leaning against the doorway. "Careful, tornado. You'll make a hole in the floor." She stopped, dizzy, giggling so hard she fell onto the couch. "You're just jealous you can't spin." I sat beside her, tickling her side until she squealed. "I can spin," I said. "I just choose not to break my back doing it." Her laughter filled the room again, and for the first time in years, I didn't hear an echo of emptiness behind it. Life had shifted. Not overnight, not in some miracle sweep, but little by little, piece by piece, like rebuilding a house that once stood in ruins. At work, the men didn't just nod anymore. They talked to me, trusted me with bigger jobs. The kind of work that paid steady, that proved I wasn't just passing through. At home, Emily ate better, slept deeper, and smiled brighter. And me, I found myself breathing easier, smiling without forcing it. But the biggest change wasn't in me or Emily. It was in who stood with us. It happened one Saturday afternoon. Emily and I were setting the table for lunch when there was a knock at the door. She dashed over before I could stop her. "I'll get it." The door swung open, and there she was, Ms. Carter. No sharp suit, no office heels. Just a simple blouse, jeans, and a smile that looked almost nervous. Emily's face lit up. "You came." "I told you I would," she said, stepping inside with a small bag in her hand. I brought dessert. "Cake." Emily guessed immediately. "Brownies," she replied. "But only if your dad lets me in." I crossed my arms, teasing. "Depends. Are you here as my boss or as something else?" She met my eyes, unflinching. "As someone who doesn't want to stay a stranger." Something in my chest softened. I stepped aside. "Then you're welcome." Lunch was loud, messy, perfect. Emily talked nonstop, telling stories about school, about the pictures she'd been drawing, about how she wanted to build a treehouse someday when we have a yard. Miss Carter listened intently, laughing in the right places, asking questions like she'd known Emily forever. At one point, Emily leaned across the table and whispered, loud enough for both of us to hear, "Daddy smiles different when you're here." Heat rose to my face. "Eat your lunch, detective." Ms. Carter chuckled, but she didn't look away from me. Not this time. After we cleared the dishes, Emily disappeared into her room, humming to herself. That left the two of us standing by the sink, hands brushing as we stacked plates. "You didn't have to come today," I said quietly. "I know." She dried her hands on a towel. "But I wanted to." I hesitated, searching for the right words. "Why us? You can spend your weekends anywhere. Why choose here?" She leaned against the counter, her expression soft. "Because this feels real. I've built a world of offices and contracts, but none of it ever laughed at the dinner table. None of it ever drew me pictures or asked if I like cake. And you," she paused, voice low, "you remind me what strength looks like when it's not wearing armor." Her words lodged deep in me. For so long, I thought of myself as broken, a man patched together by necessity, not choice. Yet she saw something else. Something I hadn't dared believe was still there. I exhaled slowly. Then maybe it's time I stopped keeping walls between us. Her smile was small, but it felt like the start of something I couldn't name. That evening, Emily climbed onto my lap, a coloring book in her hands. She held it up proudly. "See, Daddy? It's us." On the page, 3 figures stood side by side, one tall, one small, and one with long hair tied neatly back, all smiling. I swallowed hard. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. She's family now, right?" Emily asked innocently. I froze, glancing at Miss Carter. She looked at Emily, then at me, and for once, neither of us corrected her. "Yeah, baby," I said softly, kissing the top of her head. "She's family." Later, after Emily had gone to bed, I stepped outside onto the balcony. The night air was cool, carrying the faint hum of the city. Miss Carter joined me, her hands resting on the railing. "Do you ever think about how it all started?" she asked. "All the time," I admitted, One night, a broken car in the rain. I almost walked past, I almost told myself it wasn't my problem. But you didn't, she said. I shook my head. No, and it led me here, to this. For a moment, silence stretched between us, not uncomfortable but full. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who chooses you when they don't have to. I turned my eyes toward the stars. For the first time in a long time, I whispered, almost to myself, I believe we're going to be okay. Beside me, she said nothing, but her hand brushed mine, steady, certain, and in that small gesture, I felt the truth of my own words. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were healing, belonging, becoming something new, a family beyond blood.